This episode of What's the Story podcast is brought to you by Serenity Giftware Clara. View our fantastic range on Facebook, Instagram, or visit our store on River Street, Clara. Serenity Giftware, the home of great gifts.
Broadcasting live from the little town of Clara, County Offaly, it's What's the Story with Lloyd Bracken. Get in touch today through all our social channels and have your say. Oh, and thanks for listening. Now it's over to you, Lloyd. What's the story?
Hi everyone, very welcome back. This is episode 6 of What's the Story with myself, Lloyd Bracken. Thanks again for all the support for last week's podcast with Michael White. It's greatly appreciated. And don't forget, you can check out littletownmedia.com for all the older podcasts if you'd like to listen back. My next guest has given almost 40 years with community theatre of music and comedy in the Midlands. She has directed and choreographed hundreds of singers, dancers and actors throughout Westmeath and Offaly over all of those years, and she is a household name in the musical scene. It's a pleasure to have her on the show. Rufina Recks, what's the story?
Hi, Lloyd.
Rafina, I'm honoured because you generally shy away from interviews.
Yeah, I hate them.
So thanks for coming on with me. Well, that's great. I know Derek and Alan were pulling a few strings for me, so it's great. Can I go back to the start, Rafina? You're a Tullamore native.
Tullamore, born and reared in Tullamore. And went to primary school in Tullamore and then went to boarding school in Mount Rath. And the first year I was there was the first year they started to do musicals. So that's where my love of musicals started.
What was boarding school like, Rafina?
I have to say I never found it bad, but I used to look forward to the musical every year. That kept me going.
That was your highlight.
That was my highlight.
So that's where it all started for you.
That's where it all started.
And was there any other family influence in music or anything for you?
No, I had an aunt who used to teach the violin, but I never heard her play or anything like that. But I think they were all musical, but in their own way.
Do you remember your first show?
The first one was Patience, a Gilbert and Sullivan musical, and they went from that to the Mikado and then the Pirates of Penzance. They were all Gilbert and Sullivan, which is a great grounding because it's all singing and harmony singing and everything, you know. Yeah.
So tell us, Rafina, how did you get to Clara then?
How does anyone get anywhere? Met a man.
So what was it like moving from a small town of Tullamore to the bright lights of Clara?
I can't really compare, I suppose. But because I was in boarding school and then after that went to Dublin to a commercial college, I suppose I didn't know many people really in Tullamore. And of course met Richie Rex then.
Where did you meet Richie?
Met him, the musical in Tullamore. They were doing Oklahoma in there and met him there, and that's where it all started. And then we got married in 1965 and we were still doing the musicals in Tullamore. And I can remember Mary Rabbit being in one night and, you know, there was a cup of tea always at the break or afterwards. And I remember her saying to us, why don't you do something in Clara? Right. So that's how we kind of started then the following year.
It's gas how things come about, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, we're 50 years this year, the Clara Musical Society, yeah. Wow. Which is terrific, yeah.
That's going for, what was the first musical in Clara?
Oliver in 1969, I think it was, or for 50 years this year.
So how did you get something like that started in Clara?
Father Burke, Lord of Marcenham, was here at the time. And he was interested. Brother Ambrose was a brother up in St. Anthony's, and he was very involved in the choir here. So we talked to them, and that's how it started. Father Burke did the groundwork by getting the kids with Oliver. He went to the schools, and then when we were in Tullamore, doing a show in Tullamore, and when that finished we came out and did the auditions in Clara. Well, Richie was director then. And,
so how come you took over the mantle then? Did you fire your husband?
No, the Tops of the Town was going in all over Ireland, and around 1980 I won an award for Best Choreographer with the Musical Society. And after that, I was contacted by Athlone. They were the P&T at the time. It would be on post now, I suppose. And they wanted to know would I be interested in doing Tops of the Town with the staff down there. So I said, I'll give it a go. And I did 3 years down there.
Right. Was that a big thing to change from musicals up to Tops of the Town?
No, I was still involved in the musicals in Clara, but Richie was directing them. I used to do the choreography. No, I loved the Tops of the Town because it's creative and you hear a song and you say, I'd love to put that on the stage,
right, okay.
So
just going back to Richie then, what was it like working together?
Oh, great. We had our ups and downs
Everyone.
on and off stage.
But you were a good team, though.
Yeah. One of the most memorable times was the Gypsy Barn, and I was actually playing comedy opposite Richie. And after one of the scenes, it was coming near the break, and Maura Egan from Athlone, Maura's a great friend of mine, and Maura was in the musical for years. Maura was going down to the changing rooms. This was in the girls' school. Yeah. And I went down with her and we started to chat. And next minute, Martin Malloy, Lord of Mercy Martin, came in. You were supposed to be on stage. Your husband's like a devil up there. And by the time I went back up to the stage, they closed the curtain.
He couldn't really give out to you,
Oh, no.
Well, I suppose from Richie then, all your family, your sons, Declan, Brian, Derek and Alan, they had some parts down through the years and still have.
Alan was, I think, playing in the pit, nearly in short pants. I think South Pacific actually was his first one. Yeah. Then Declan and Brian, they all got involved on stage. And then Derek, I think, was on stage for one Tops of the Town. Oh, right. Mark McKeown and Bobby Cushion, they were all the one group. The whole town got involved. I think was the great thing about it.
It was a real community.
It was a community. It was, from the costumes down to everything. Yeah. The tickets used to be a problem, all right.
The tickets were a problem.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a few minutes.
You got a limited number of tickets.
It was like a lottery, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Waiting for that call for the ticket for Tops of the Town.
Yeah, how many you were going to get. Yeah. And you had over 100 people involved in the show itself.
So, Rafina, tell us, what's it like to run a musical society? It must be very hard keeping it fresh and keeping it going every year with sponsorship or that. Is it hard work?
Sponsorship is low, but for a small town, I suppose. And you just can't keep going back to the pubs and the shops, the same people every time. Yeah. So it is hard, but we do a lot of fundraising. We've cake sales, we had quizzes before the mobiles. Yeah. Now they're all on their mobiles with the answers. So,
Rafina, would you have been a nervous person backstage before the lights came up?
Not really, no. No, I would be if I thought things weren't going too well.
Yeah. Would that differ in a competition situation? Would the nerves be more?
The competition never bothered me. It never worried me whether we came first, second or third, so long as it went well and the cast all enjoyed it. But, there were one or two times and you felt you should have done better, But
okay. What was it like working with all different personalities and trying to direct so many different people?
Lloyd, I did a director's course many moons ago with an English producer. And the first line in the weekend seminar he said was, if you want to be a director, you've got to be a psychiatrist and a psychologist as well, because you're dealing with so many different people. And that always stood out to me when I say, yeah.
It's a great piece of advice, isn't it?
It was. And it was true.
Yeah, because I've been involved in shows and there does be ups and downs in different shows.
Oh yeah, sure.
But it's how you dealt with them and people around you dealt with them, because sometimes you'd feel like giving up, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I never did with Tops, I think or the musical. But you make so many friends in it, and
If I had to put you on the spot, Rafina, would you pick some of your favourite musicals down through the years?
My favourite one, and Richie won Best Producer for it, was The Student Prince. Nice. After that, then Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two very different
And
shows.
cats.
And cats.
Yeah, and cats.
Right.
So three very different.
Fantastic. So, like, how do you go about picking a show?
Well, now Alan picks them. Before it used to be Richie and myself.
And talk to us about that. How would you go through and say, let's do that show?
I suppose there's always favourites you have, and you have to think of who you have, even though you don't know until September or October who's going to be with you, who's in or out. But you do show that you just lean towards the show and go for it.
You've done a lot of work with youth down through the years.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I love the kids. They're great. I think they're fantastic. We do a show every year. We do an hour's variety and then an hour, like this year we should have been doing The Wizard of Oz. And the idea of the hour's variety is any kid who maybe doesn't get a part in The Wizard of Oz, they'll get a solo or something in the first half.
So there's something for everyone.
There's something for everyone.
Because it is important, because a lot of parents
Oh,
look
very
at that,
much.
you know, why is he a tree? And why is
Yeah. Yeah, well, the seniors get the parts,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, going back to that, I remember going up on a Saturday was a huge day for me. You know, to look forward. It
Right,
really was,
yeah.
because the drama classes was on, all the friends, we were down at the parochial hall. We used to go down to O'Reilly's Cafe after, then we'd have a bun or tea or whatever. It was
Yeah.
kind of simple, you know.
Yeah.
But like the friendship and the confidence we got
The
from that
social
was great.
and the musical and everything too.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
it
But like,
is, yeah.
would you like to see more young people getting involved?
In the last, I suppose, 5 years, we're getting more and more of the younger girls and boys. For a few years there, they weren't coming in, but then I suppose they were going to college or they were working. And then when you get one, you get another.
Yeah.
And
Do you think the shows, like being in a show, is a fashionable thing? It's the thing to do now? Or is that the way it works?
no, it's the friendships and the social life, social end of it. Until you actually go into it, you don't realise how much, you know.
You talk about a lot of the shows over the years with Oliver, South Pacific, Calamity Jane, Greece, Oklahoma. But to name a few, I'd like to talk about them all, but we can't. But there was one standout show for me, as we mentioned, was Tops of the Town.
Yeah.
Firstly, for me, it was as a spectator, but went on to be on stage. But I remember getting on the bus years ago. The crack on the bus, going to Dundalk or Kilkenny. It was a huge day out. The tickets was a huge problem.
Yes.
Nervous trying to get a ticket. But
Tony Fagan, God bless him.
poor Tony needed an operator down in the green for the phone calls that was going in. But like the people on the bus, you had people like May Newman, Tony and Carl, you mentioned.
Yes.
Mona Stones, Mary Scully, and my own mother, Kathleen.
Yes.
The Fairies, name a few. But like they were as important to the show
They were.
as the cast.
Very much, yeah.
You know, for the support and
Yeah, and the tickets.
the tickets. I remember even myself and Sinead Fleming, as she was then,
Yes.
we used to make posters before we go on the
Right,
bus, and
yeah.
that was a massive thing for
Oh,
us. you know.
yes.
Do you miss those days, Rafina?
Well, the musical is still there. The Tops was more, I suppose, you got away, you got out of the town, and there was great fun.
Yeah. The first Top show, that was 1986.
I did Athlone 80 to 84, 85 or 86.
Right. What was the first Top show in Clara like?
The youth centre, believe it or not. I was after doing a show with Brother Charles in the youth centre, and we decided we'd go into Tops that year. But we wouldn't have had enough people or enough rehearsed kind of to put on the show. So the musical put in one scene, did a My Fair Lady scene, because we were doing My Fair Lady that year as well. So that's how they got involved then.
Brilliant. Take us back, Rafina. It was Cork City. It was summer of 1996. Tops of the Town final.
Final.
Clara
on
Community
RT.
Group, versus Shinay. Obviously, Clara haven't been so close for many years. And then we reached the pinnacle.
We reached the pinnacle, and that was the pinnacle. And Tops finished the following year.
So we finished it. Tell you what, we'll have a little listen to some audio from that show. 1996, on RT, as you said.
Ladies and gentlemen, the John Player Tops.
It's great and small on the endless way. It's a circle of life, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and love, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of life.
Nolene Little finishing off that piece. I mean, that'd really take you
Fabulous.
back, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Sounds fabulous.
Doesn't
it
it?
does, yeah.
The sound,
Yeah.
the band, everything was on top form.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
everything, yeah.
What's your memories of that show?
One of the big memories, Bernard Coyle and Patrice from Athlone. Bernard was one of our guest artists. And, of course, like a lot of musicians, they were playing at a wedding in Athlone that day and they were booked for it, couldn't get out of it. So the only thing we could do was Jimmy Spallin in Tullamore had an aeroplane.
No way.
Yes.
Didn't know
this. Did you not? I can't remember who did the negotiations, but Jimmy flew them down to Cork Airport. They drove from Athlone to Tullamore, and he flew them down to Cork Airport for the final night. And one of the some of the gang met them there.
Wow.
And
It's real rock star stuff.
I'm telling you, no problems.
Jesus. Like, was there a lot of nerves for yourself? I know we talked about nerves before that show. Going on RTÉ TV, I don't know how many people was watching, maybe hundreds of thousands at that time.
Yeah. I don't think of that. I think of the cast, and as I say, once I'm happy with the show, kind of, and that they do okay. Yeah. But I remember Alan. I was so sorry for Alan. He was so disappointed, and he'd put so much work into it.
A lot of work went into that show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Talk us through some of the preparations then for that show to get to that night.
I honestly can't answer that, because to devise the show depends on maybe a song or something that's out at the time. Maybe The Lion King was out that year, and you just would love to get your hands on and do something with it. The famine we had a very good famine scene in that, and Teresa Flynn, Lord of Mercy, sang in it. Again, variety was the thing. The famine was so different from carnivals and circus and everything.
Like, the cast on that show was amazing.
They were terrific.
Not just because I was in it, no, obviously.
No, they were absolutely fantastic.
No, but you had the likes. You mentioned the late Teresa Flynn.
Yes.
And the late Joe Kenny on that.
Yes.
Nippy Norton, John Lowe, Trisha Dunn, Barry
Richie
Kelly,
Rex.
Richie Rex.
Yeah, John Lowe, I have to tell you too. Particularly that weekend, as you know, John used to like to celebrate, and of course we were all worried that weekend that maybe he'd celebrate between the rehearsal and the show. So Scutchy Rickard and some of the boys brought him golfing.
I can imagine John Lowe.
And the night before, we used to stay for 2 nights. Richie and myself had him in our apartment and locked him into the room for the night. I don't know whether he knew that or not.
He knows now. Anyway.
He knows now. But John, the two of them hit it off great on stage.
They were fantastic.
The comedy, they were.
Before we get on to the comedy, we also had another Clara man, a man from up the road. We'll have a little listen.
Tommy.
It's only Tommy that could pull off that, isn't it?
Tommy Scanlon, and he's still going strong.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah.
Rafina, how did you assemble such an ensemble for that show? I know, like, the cast, but you had the likes of the Coyles in, Joe Kenny.
Well, the Coyles had been with us several years in Tops. I'm sure they were in 5 or 6 of the Top shows. Joe was involved in drama, of course, and I was very friendly with Joe, and I asked him, would he narrate the famine? You wanted a kind of mature person to put it across, and no, we never had any problem asking people, and we all, and of course, I suppose 90% of the cast were Clara.
But I mean, how did you go specifically to say that that part would suit that person in the show? Was that just experience?
Experience, I think, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and even still, you have to be very careful. You can put a person into a part, but you can't take them out. You know, once you put them in, you can't take them out. You have to really think about before you put them in.
The camaraderie in that show was, I know, in every show is unbelievable. But there's nothing like I've ever seen it since. The relationships, a lot of tops marriages.
Yes.
And kids and all that. We won't go there. But why was it so special on that show?
I don't know. I think maybe the excitement of it getting to the final, being on telly, and the camaraderie.
Yeah. It was special.
We didn't, there was never any bitterness or...
Everybody was for each other.
Everybody was for the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we had a big chat in the Star, actually, the night before we all went to Cork. And you brought in various different people to give us the pep talk. And I'd never forget that. That was fantastic. But, just that little bit of a kick before you went on to...
Yeah, well, I suppose you were tired listening to me, so it was time to get someone else to give out.
We didn't like to say... the work that went on behind the stage.
Yes.
Probably even more important than...
Oh, most important, yeah.
The team led by the late Seamus Dignam.
Yes.
If I recall.
Yeah.
Worked tirelessly to make, along with the late PJ Cushion.
Yes.
How important was the backstage crew to that success?
Well, again, you see, they had to build the sets as well, and then camaraderie again, that they worked well together. And usually the stage manager, like Wayne Handy is stage manager now, they get their own team. They know the people they can work with. Costumes, I mean, we must have been the only society and still making costumes.
Yeah. The old Sebago factory, Jimmy Newman had organised
Jimmy Newman was manager up there, and he said, so long as we used people that worked in the factory, they used to go back at night time then, if had worked on the machines before. And Maura Egan in Athlone, Maura designed and cut out patterns. And
I think Maura was involved in some of the comedy sketches.
She was, yeah. Maura's a great stalwart. And Maura, the first show I think that we made costumes was Viva Mexico. Now that must be 40 years ago. And to this day, Maura would say, I saw my skirt up there on the stage, or I saw your coat up there. And of course Liz Rickard now and Mary Cornelly, they're fantastic costumes now.
Brilliant. The comedy sketches, Rafina, we were talking about with Richie and John, they were very popular. The chemistry they had, they bounced off each other.
Yeah.
Were they easy to direct?
I think I left them to their own devices.
Yeah, two gas lads. I remember John Lowe was telling me years ago that Brendan Grace complimented him after that show.
Really?
Yeah. Did you not know that, Rafina?
No, I didn't. Yeah. No.
And also we mentioned Maura, your friend, was in them sketches. We had Aidan Daigan as well.
Yes.
Vincent Flanagan.
Finny,
yeah. Sinead Goff.
Yes.
Was it the dream comedy team, Rafina?
Oh, yes, yeah. And Vinny, of course, is another, like Tommy Scanlon. Vinny hasn't been in a musical for a few years, but he'd always be there. If you needed an extra or even an extra body on the stage, ask Vinny and he'd come in, Yeah,
he always had a good part, hadn't he?
He had,
that giant part or whatever.
Yeah.
We mentioned the chemistry that the lads had. We'll have a little reminder of how good John and Richie were. Again, 1996. We'll stick to this show because we could be here for a week. Clock computer. So, live in RT. Here we go.
I see appendix must be on today too.
Appendix?
Yeah, they call her appendix because every doctor took her out. She has an impediment in her speech.
Oh.
She can't say no. Listen, I can only tell you this once. My Pete suffers from alcoholic constipation.
Alcoholic constipation?
Yeah, he can't pass a pub. Maggie,
Yes?
I'm dreading the thoughts of going to this clinic today.
Why, dear?
The doctor thinks I might have to have a hysterical rectomy. I'm approaching the change.
Approaching the change. From which direction?
I don't know. All I know is I'm going through the manifold.
Tell me, do you have trouble passing water?
God, now that you mention it, I did get a funnier sensation there earlier today going over Patrick's Bridge.
No. I mean, does it burn when you pass water?
I don't know. I never put a match to it.
I'm going to have one of my turns. I'll get a doctor quick.
Will I give you the kiss of life?
Over my dead body. I'll get a doctor quick.
Are you hurting bad?
Did you ever hear of anybody hurting good?
Oh, Lord. Here, did I tell you the one about the bisexual donkey?
No.
He had a he in the morning and a haw at night.
Oh, where is he? Did you get the doctor?
No, I called the undertaker.
You're what you call the undertaker?
Yeah, I did as she always said. Cut out the middleman.
Rafina, we're giggling away here big time.
Yeah, their timing was excellent.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Like, I
it
mean,
was.
how did that partnership come about?
I suppose the first year that both were in the show and we needed comedy.
But I mean, to get that team together was something special. That doesn't come about.
It doesn't, no, but I suppose rehearsal and again that they bonded together, if you like.
Yeah, the timing was that
Their
brings
timing
back some
was
memories,
excellent.
doesn't it?
Yeah, it
But
does.
it's timeless. I've listened to this a few times this week, and I've laughed every time. Every time I've heard it, it doesn't get old, you know.
Yeah,
But there were simple scenes, weren't they?
there were.
You
Yeah,
know.
the two Ronnies and Russ Abbott. I used to watch a lot of their shows, and
Yeah. I was talking to John during the week, and let's hear John speaking about the chemistry between himself and Richie.
Richie was unpredictable, Lloyd, like I was myself. Now, having said that, Lloyd, we had chemistry. You see, we both used to go to the same chemist shop, you know? But working with Richie was a nightmare. Of course, he had the boss on his side, Rafina. So our Richie could do nothing wrong. Coming up to a show, as you know yourself and many people know, Richie had an electrical shop in River Street. And at the back of the electrical shop, he had a workshop. And one particular Sunday, we were doing a rehearsal down in the parochial hall, and he said to me, "Do you know something, John? We're getting trouble with this particular sketch. Why don't you come down to the workshop to me during the week, and we can do the rehearsals down there?" And I thought this was a good idea. You know, we'd have the place to ourselves, no interruptions or anything like that. So I said, "Yeah, great, Richie." So we stuck at that for about 2, maybe 3 months. It ended up, at the end of it, coming out there, before we went on stage on a particular night, I knew more about fixing televisions than I did about what I was supposed to be doing on stage, like, you know. We were working together so much that we knew one another's movements. We knew by facial expression, by body movements, that there was something going wrong or something going to happen. If Richie maybe turned a different way or said another word, I'd know there was something wrong, that we were going off the track a little bit, like, you know. But we always got back, like, you know. But Rafina, I suppose a class her like Jack Charlton or Shane Lowry. She was the special one. She had the foresight, Lloyd, predict or anticipate where something was going wrong, or whether it was a piece of choreography, whether it was right or not. She could see where it was going. Like, she was great at detail, whether it came to costumes, the stage settings for a scene, or movements on the stage. You could always speak to Rafina, like, if I thought that this sketch is not going down well, or we should do this with, she'd talk to you about it, like, you know, and she'd listen to what you had to say. But you could always rely on her, you know, and you could approach her. You know, she was a great lady, you know, and I worked very well with her.
Some nice words there, Rafina.
John's looking for another part.
He's getting
Thank
back.
you, John.
He's coming out of retirement. So you're up there with Jack Charlton, according to John Lowe. How does that feel, Rafina?
Oh, look, I enjoyed every year of it. And just listening to that about Richie always said he wasn't great on memorising lines. And if he forgot a line, he said, what you do is you look at the other fella as if it's his mistake. So poor John was looked at a lot.
So that was the technique Richie had.
That was it. Yeah. But I'm sure John knew it as well.
Sadly, along with Richie, Lord be good to him, some of the cast and crew are no longer with us.
Yes.
Lastly, a little piece from John. It only came about by chance because I was going to play this little piece. I'll play it and we'll have a listen.
I remember one particular night before, the night actually we were going out in RTE, there was one particular scene that was called The Darkest Hour. That involved the late Joe Kenny and a girl who got to be a good friend of mine and always supported me in Tops of Town. That was Teresa Flynn. Lord be good to her as well. But the night that we were doing the show, before we went out, the three of us just happened to end up in the dressing room together, and Joe was going through his part and Teresa was doing her piece and I was trying to do the few bits and pieces that I had. And I literally could see Joe Kenny, tears coming down his eyes. He was looking into a mirror, Lloyd. And he was going through his monologue or his descriptive thing that he had to do. But he was putting so much emotion. And that emotion came out on the stage as well. And so did it come out with Teresa. You know, they really put so much. And did all the cast. You know, it wasn't just one or two individuals. Everyone. And the cast, what was unique about the cast and the crew, the back team crew and all that, was the fact that they supported one another. You know, they gave you a boost before you went out. Go on out there and do that now. You can do it. Like, forget about the cameras and things like that, you know. And that was great. It was like a family life.
Stranger scoffing. There's a proud array of soldiers. What do they round your door? They guard the landlord's granary from the thin hands of the poor. Pale mothers, wherefore weeping? Would to God that we were dead. Our children die before us, and we cannot give them bread.
'Twas then we did be friends.
Such a powerful piece there.
A lovely
isn't it?
scene, yeah.
Looking back, that's probably one of my favourite piece of that show.
Yeah. The song, I was getting it hard to get a song that would suit that. And one Sunday morning, I think the radio was on in the kitchen, and this song caught my ear. And it was written by, and I can't think of his name. He's a relation of Cunninghams in Tullamore. He writes a lot of church music. And Nora Kavanagh was involved as well. She was in the Pit Singers. And I remember saying it to Nora, and she said, I know who you're talking about. I said, I'd love if we could use that song. She rang him, and there was no problem. He sent the words and everything for it.
Because everything fell in place for that. Joe Kenny, Teresa Flynn, the song.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have put two people and a better song together for that, I think.
Yeah.
Rafina, go back over the show. We'll finish up on tops nearly. Would you change anything about the show looking back?
No, I don't think so. No,
That's
I
good,
hadn't thought about that.
There's something to think about.
No.
But there's so many great memories of that show. Sadly, we were narrowly beaten in the end.
We were,
Yeah.
yes.
Some would say disappointing.
Some of the
unfair
adjudicators
results.
are still not popular.
Yes, I've never listened to an Emer Quinn CD since then. But the memory stand on, and as you say, it's not all about the winning.
It's not, no. And we do. I'm sure we had a great weekend.
Yeah, I remember the homecoming. Do you remember that?
Yes, unbelievable the way the town turned out, and it was terrific up in the square.
You talk about GAA homecomings, like the Tops of Town. Brian Cowan was there, the parish priest.
Brian Cowan came to every final or semi-final that we were in. He always turned up.
Would you like to see a comeback of Tops, Rafina?
I would. I'd love to see it.
Would you direct it?
No, I don't think so, Lloyd. But I can tell you, I would. If it came up, I would love to be thinking of what you would put together. I love that end of it.
Some comments from the past cast members and crew. Firstly, from your friend Liz Rickard. I have worked with Rafina for over 25 years or more with musicals and Tops of the Town. She's a very creative person and has amazing ideas with what she wants to put on stage and making them come to life. She's a pleasure to work with, and hopefully we will continue to do so for many years to come. She is one very talented lady, and I'm lucky to have her as a friend. That came in from Liz.
Thank you, Liz. check is in the post.
Barry Kelly from the States
Yes.
writes in, he says he doesn't know how you put up with it with us all, and adds that you're an amazing choreographer and woman. That's from Barry. Enda Kennedy, Rafina is a lovely lady, has done so much for the town. She kept us all out of trouble with tops in the 80s.
I think I put some of them into trouble.
Linda Rock Flanagan adds that her favourite moment was The Sound of Music, when Miriam Rex and myself were late coming on stage for a dance, and Seamus Dignam and I think Thomas Doherty had to fly off the stage. We got a right ticking off that night and a lot of slagging. And Joe Rabbit says he remembers it well. And he said we were robbed by a country mile, you know. Just on that, I have to say well done to Joe and Alan and Derek for That's Clara Live
Yes.
on TV last week. That was brilliant.
Clara, it's a fantastic town. Between you with the radio, you know, when I got married first, it used to annoy me if I heard people saying there's nothing to do in Clara. And I used to say there's more to do in Clara than in a lot of towns. I mean, with the musical, drama, bands, everything.
Yeah, Clara is a fantastic
A
town.
fantastic town.
Yeah. And we'd appeal to young people to get involved in that. It stands to you.
The youth drama as well, the kids coming on there.
Last couple of comments. Geraldine Rohan, Geraldine Toohey.
Geraldine, yeah.
I remember it well, one of the best experiences of my life. Made some great friends and memories. And Ivor Connolly wants to know, from all of the top shows that made it through to the final stages, was there any show that stood out for you?
I suppose the final. Yeah, there were one or two others maybe where there was a scene you loved, you know, but the whole show, I think the final, it came together.
Brilliant. Rafina, normally at the end we do a quick fire round, okay?
Okay, go on.
So it's the first thing that comes into your head. It's 10 questions, okay?
Right.
So we'll start now. Grease or Joseph?
Grease.
Tops of the Town or a musical?
I won't answer that.
First thing you'd buy if you won the lotto?
Buy a theatre for Clara.
Good one. What actress would play you in a film?
Oh. Meryl Streep, I suppose. Go high.
The best thing about Clara?
The community spirit. You know, everybody, and if things are down, everybody is behind you. If things are up, everybody's up. So,
your favourite TV show?
I loved Downton Abbey when it was on.
Me too. Your favourite musical you've attended?
Ragtime.
Nice.
We've never done it, but I love it. It's South American music. And
Dean Crow Hall or the Parochial Hall?
Oh, I always loved the Dean Crow Hall, the stage. It's a fine stage.
Calamity Jane or South Pacific?
South Pacific.
Okay. And the last question, would you rather an Ames Award for Best Show or the Tops of the Town final winning trophy?
Oh, gee. Well, Tops of the Town is gone 15 years or something now, Lloyd. So.
We're living in the past. We have to get over 96. So we'll take a musical, an Ames Award. You'd be happy with that?
Yeah, well, we got a name. We have,
yeah.
For Cats, we won the award for that.
Great show.
We had a few nominations as well. So,
Rafina, lastly, what advice would you give today's youth?
To get involved in music. And if you don't sing or play an instrument or are not musical minded, get involved some way, backstage or something. You make so many friends and you'll never be lonely, because no matter what, you know, there's so many people there for you.
Yeah. And I can vouch for that. It's definitely
that's
the truth.
It is, yeah.
Just on a final note, I'd like to acknowledge the following great people who are listed on the programme of Tops 1996 who are no longer with us from that particular show. As we were all so close, I suppose, in one big happy family, basically. I think it's right to remember those cast members. I'll just list them out in no particular order. Linda McCormick, Richie Rex, Seamus Dignam, PJ Cushion, Joe Kenny, Teresa Flynn, Bernie Rickard, and May Newman, and also Jackie Lynham, who was was in the special thank you notes, and to all our other past members from the shows who are sadly missed too. I just also want to thank Liz Rickard, Derek Rex, Edel Rex, and John Lowe for their contributions in putting this together.
Thank
Rafina, you. You're not one for interviews. How was that?
Just shy away from the public.
Have you any regrets, Rafina?
None whatsoever. No, just love to work 12 months of the year rather than the 6 months or whatever.
You've given Clara some great memories over the years and your dedication to the arts here in town. I'd like to thank you for all you've done for Clara and wish you many more years of shows to come.
Thank you for having me, Lloyd.
And you truly are tops of our town. Thanks for having the chat.
Thank you.
This episode of What's the Story podcast is brought to you by Serenity Giftware Clara. View our fantastic range on Facebook, Instagram, or visit our store on River Street, Clara. Serenity Giftware, the home of great gifts.
You just listened to What's the Story with Lloyd Bracken. Check out all our social channels for info on new episodes. Oh, and thanks for listening. On the Town.